Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, this series of reflections focuses on the different aspects of Christian truths, especially from the perspective of the Bible and the church tradition. We are going to discuss deeply and with substance some of the major themes of Christian tradition. For that purpose, we need to clarify some of the basic terms, such as the meaning of mystery. Most of the people have heard of this word mystery, but it's very important for them to understand deeply the real meaning of mystery and also what we mean by faith, hope, and charity, and what we mean by a sacrament and prayer life and contemplation, etc. Now, the term mystery, the English term, comes from a Greek word, mysterium. The Greek word is mysterium. If you spell it in English, M-Y-S or M-U-S-T-E-R-I-U-M. What does it mean? Does it mean something we cannot understand? Or does it mean it's kind of a hidden thing, a secret, or a dark secret, or something obscure, something not very clear, or something occultic? The Greek word as well as the English word conveys the meaning in this sense that a mystery means something, of course, not secretive, not something obscure or occultic, but something we need to understand constantly. That means endless understanding. There is no end to its understanding. The more you understand it, the more there are to be understood. The more you understand it, the more there are to be understood. Endless understanding or ongoing understanding. Meaning to say, until the day we die, we need to keep understanding it. Then you could come up with a very comprehensive grasp of what you are trying to understand. And also, for a mystery to be understood properly, there is another condition, that is the ongoing spiritual growth of the person who tries to understand it, or the ongoing spiritual growth of the, let's say, the Christian, or the theologian, or the one who is trying to figure it out. Apart from the spiritual growth, or apart from the ongoing spiritual growth of the person who is trying to understand it, one may not be able to really and deeply and profoundly grasp it. Why is it important? Why is it so? Because Christianity is not a subject like any other subject. Christianity is not like, for an example, mathematics, economics, or biology, or history, archaeology. Of course, these disciplines can be utilized. These disciplines can be used in order to understand different aspects of Christianity, but Christianity is ultimately a lifestyle. So we could only understand it as a result of trying to live it out. So on the one hand, the process of understanding. On the other hand, the process of trying to live it out, actualize it, and to witness to it. So that is why the ongoing spiritual growth and the ongoing spiritual maturity of the person who is trying to understand is very crucial and very important. For an example, there are truths in Christianity. When you ask about these truths, or when you kind of start reading about these truths, or when you try to learn about these truths, you may not be able to immediately grasp them. Even though you have initiated, you have begun the process of understanding, there has to be another requirement, another component, which is the ongoing openness and ongoing spiritual maturity of the knower. Without that aspect, we may not be able to fully and really grasp the truths of Christian tradition. And also there is another requirement for this process of understanding, that is the help of God or the grace of God. In the sense, we need also guidance from the divine. We need the guidance from the Holy Spirit, because ultimately these truths are about God and His operations in the world. Therefore, of course, the human efforts are very important. We should try our best to understand. We should utilize our mental capacity and our memory and our logical reasoning and our argumentative power, etc. At the same time, we need the divine illumination, divine guidance, or the grace of God. So it's a combination of understanding of Christianity is then a combination of human efforts and divine guidance or divine cooperation. So both aspects are very important, because these are truths about the ultimate reality, which is what we call the Trinity or the Triune God. Since these truths are about ultimate realities, we also need the help from that ultimate reality in order to really deepen our understanding of these truths. So I think that approach is very important. That ongoing open-mindedness is very important. If not, we tend to, without knowing or unknowing, we tend to kind of trap in the temptation of coming up with final conclusions or ultimate conclusions. We need to remain open-minded. We have to develop that surprise, this openness for surprises when it comes to grappling with Christian truths. So let's focus now a bit more exclusively on the aspect of faith. The meaning of faith. Here, faith as a living experience, or when we believe in God, what is going to happen to us? Faith in God and its nature, in other words. So what is going to happen to someone when that person says, I believe in God? But here again, I am not talking about nominally believing or kind of verbal belief, or verbally you are simply believing but nothing is happening. No. What I mean is existentially. I mean in the real sense of the word, when one commits one life for a process of spiritual growth. So in that process, what really happens when one says that I believe in God or I have faith in God? And let's take another example. Let's take a comparative situation. One says that one believes in God and another says that he or she does not believe in God. Could there be a difference? Is there really a difference between a person who believes in God and person who does not believe in God? Of course, there has to be a difference. If not, what's the point of claiming that I believe in God, but there is no qualitative and a quantitative difference between the lifestyles of these two people? There has to be, if it is true Christian faith, if it is true Christian spiritual struggle. Now, what does it do to us when we say, or when we have an experience of faith? Now, you need to understand, usually humans tend to look at the world from their own perspective, from our habits, or from what we have heard from our parents, from our society, and from the wider culture we live in, and also some of our biases. We have our own prejudices, we have our own prejudgments. This is natural to every human person. But someone who believes in God, or someone who has faith in God, tries to acquire the perspective of God about life. Meaning to say, he or she tries to look at the world, look at other people, look at the situation as much as possible from the perspective of the divine. So, meaning to say, when you believe in God, you constantly go beyond yourself. You go beyond your narrow intellectual confines. You go beyond your human horizon. More and more you acquire a deeper and a higher perspective on life, going beyond oneself. Sometimes this can be a very painful process. You see, most people tend to, for kind of inner security, most people tend to cling on to their beliefs, their prejudices, their biases and prejudgments, even though those prejudices may be very much without any foundation. They may be baseless, but people love to cling on to them. One of the greatest fears we have as human is the fear of changing. We don't want to change, especially when it comes to our ideas, our opinions, and our whatever the cherished beliefs. So faith challenges us to go beyond ourselves constantly and to examine our own beliefs, our own prejudices, sometimes our own opinions. And faith also encourages us to become more and more critical of ourselves, of our actions, of our behaviors, and also how we look at other people and how we look at the world. That's very important, because faith is not irrational, not illogical. It's also not against the progress of sciences and other disciplines, but faith goes beyond any human logic, any human rational path. In fact, faith purifies human reasoning and human logic. It's not against it, it does not contradict it, it purifies it, it goes beyond human logic and human reason. And it's the ultimate form of logic. Faith is the ultimate form of human reason. Faith is the ultimate form of rationality and wisdom. That is why, if you are a man of faith, you also need to use your intelligence. You also need to use your mind and your logic, etc. In fact, St. Thomas Aquinas said, intellect is the greatest gift God gave us, or the greatest faculty God gave us. Therefore, we need to use it. Faith is never against reason. Faith is never against the progress and advancement and the new discoveries of sciences and other disciplines. Faith needs these things, but faith purifies and then goes beyond these things. So what we need is actually in faith is the reason purified by faith, and also what we have in Christianity is faith ennobled by reason. Some people tend to go to one of these extremes. One extreme is what we call fideism. Fideism means most people think, faith is enough. You simply believe. Don't ask questions. Don't investigate. Don't kind of search for answers, you see. Don't listen to new discoveries. You simply believe. That's fideism. That had been condemned as a heresy by the church, you see. You cannot function like that. The other extreme is, which is also a heresy, a wrong idea, is rationalism, from the Latin word ratio, R-A-T-I-O, ratio means reason. Reason alone will solve all the problems, you see. Rationalism is another extreme. If something if your logic cannot understand something, if it is beyond your logic, that cannot be simply true. You see, two extremes, both are very much detrimental to the true human progress and to social progress. So the healthy approach is, we need both, but it's not just any faith, faith purified by reason, and reason ennobled by faith. So they are like two sides of the same coin. There is no contradiction, or there is no inherent contradiction between these two. So faith in God also purifies our intention, because you acquire, you see, more and more you acquire a greater perspective about life. You have a gigantic vision about life, about the universe, and about other people. So that is why faith is never stagnant. Faith is not something stagnant or ready-made or fixed. Faith is something very dynamic. Meaning to say, as we grow older, our faith should also undergo growth, purification, amplification, enlargement, deepening, and refinement. So it's never stagnant. As we grow older, we should also grow in our faith. Then you become a great person, bigger person. Your magnanimity grows. You acquire a great character because you are in the process of spiritual growth. There is no spiritual growth without purifying one's faith. If your faith is stagnant, that means you are also not growing. You are just blindly holding on to some opinions or some prejudice. You have not purified your faith. That's why at times doubts are very important. Doubts mean real doubts. If you doubt, if you question, doubts in the sense of questioning and becoming honest about one's faith struggle, that's very important, because doubts give you an opportunity, or doubts give you opportunities for you to purify your faith, to deepen and to correct and to refine them. So doubts are not bad in that sense. Problem is, most people, when they have doubts, they come to final conclusions. A doubt does not mean a conclusion. When you have doubts, you should remain open-minded. More doubts, more open-mindedness. Not final conclusion. That's the problem with most people. When they have a doubt, their doubt becomes their conclusion. Now, doubt means you should examine further, you should explore further. Like if you have, for an example, like most young people have these days, if you have doubts about the existence of God, explore it. Search and study and then be open. Remain open-minded. Problem is, when you have a doubt about the existence of God, you come to an ultimate conclusion, final conclusion. What is your conclusion? There is no God. Actually, there is no connection between having a doubt, doubt is a doubt, having a doubt and coming up with a definitive conclusion. Doubt should not make us narrow-minded, in other words. Doubt should make us broad-minded. We should develop this constant open-mindedness, broad-mindedness. So that's why doubts play a very indispensable role in the process of our spiritual growth, provided we know how to handle them. Provided we make use of those opportunities for true exploration and for a deep understanding of Christian faith. So even about doubts, we should have a proper understanding and a proper approach. Doubts are at the service of faith, properly understood. That's why some of the great skeptics in history became great intellectual theologians and Christians, like St. Paul and St. Augustine and St. Clement of Alexandria, St. Origen. They had a lot of doubts. As a result of these doubts, they were able to clarify and understand, deepen their Christian faith, and then became outstanding Christians. So the opposite of faith is not doubt, actually. The opposite of faith is kind of a, cynical attitude. There is a difference between skepticism and cynicism. A skeptic may ask questions in order to know, in order to explore. A cynic, even though he has some form of, let's say, that person came to some understanding of something, that person came to understand some solid foundation for something, still he or she would not want to accept them. You see, it's kind of a negative, pessimistic attitude about life and everything, So skepticism is healthy, cynicism is self-destructive. Such persons are going to remain cynics until the day they die. They would not have any conviction about life, or they would not have seen any meaning, any ultimate meaning in life ultimately. So that is why faith, purified faith, is very important for life. A faithless life is an aimless life, kind of a meaningless life, kind of a useless life, because that person has no proper purpose for life, no proper orientation. He's just simply existing, sleeping, eating, drinking, and watching TV, but no meaning, no sense of purpose, no sense of goal, and no sense of mission, and no sense of passion in life. Then such a life becomes ultimately a meaningless life, because you need, in order to live life meaningfully, we need some convictions. We need some meaningful ideals. We need a sense of mission, a sense of goal for the life, a sense of purpose, in other words. If not, life becomes eventually a meaningless thing. So faith gives us a lot of meaning. It makes our lives meaningful. Then when you have deep faith in God, you begin to live your life for God. You have a purpose. You have a purpose bigger than your life. You have a purpose beyond your death also. That's also very important. Because some people have some form of political and a philosophical perspective about life, kind of a vision about life, but the problem is that vision is only up to their death. Beyond death, they don't have a vision. Then that can also narrow your life and the meaning of your life. We need a vision which is eternal, an eternal vision we need. Only faith in God gives us that eternal vision, that gigantic, that architectonic vision. Then you could live your life for a bigger purpose, a bigger mission. Jesus' life was like that, That's why his faith was perfect. Jesus had perfect faith. So that's why every minute he lived here on earth was meaningful, and he was serving people. So as people, we also need, as humans, we also need such a vision. Most of the people are living very boring lives now. Very dry, very arid lives, very empty lives, because they don't have a gigantic vision about life. They don't have an eternal perspective about life. Only faith in God gives us such a vision. Then we are not afraid of anything. We are not afraid of any challenge, any hardship, any difficulty. Because faith gives us a lot of courage. Faith gives us a lot of enthusiasm. It gives us a lot of audacity. And we want to do things beyond our capacity, beyond our habitual abilities. We wanted to always dream big for God and on behalf of His plan for the earth. That's why faith makes us big people, greater people, gigantic people. It gives us it energizes us. It pumps a lot of enthusiasm into what we do. You become, in fact, when you have faith in God, full of life. You become alive, full of energy. Nothing could stop you. Nothing could hinder your day-to-day life and your mission in life. So this is an invitation for you to live such a life. So faith in God is a very decisive factor in order to live a meaningful life. So faith matters. Faith in God, if properly understood, is never blind. It's not illusory. It's everything. In fact, faith is the key to the universe. Faith is the key to success in life. And also, more than anything else, faith is the key to true human happiness. If you lack faith in God, that means eventually you're gonna be a very unhappy person. True happiness has something to do with your deep faith in God. So reflect about these things, Another purpose of this series of reflection is not to kind of bombard with you these ideas, but to make you reflect and to think deeply about the meaning of life with these insights, especially from the Christian tradition and from the Word of God. So reflectively, you could grasp these things and then begin to live them out, begin to put them into practice. May God bless you all.